Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Business in Bentonville. I'm Andy Wilson, and I'm the host today. And thank you so much. I'll say during the podcast how much you have done, and we're so grateful because now, because of you, we're now viewed in over 90 countries, and that is phenomenal. So thank you. Keep sharing. Hey, keep sending me messages. I want to hear from you. Let me know how we're doing and any suggestions you have. I have got such a phenomenal guest today. Nick, welcome.
Andy, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be here.
It is so good. Not only Nick and I have this opportunity, but we're great friends and we do something that we love, and that's cycling together. 100%. Well, here's the truth, everyone. Okay, I got to say it up front. I see Nick twice on a ride, okay, at the beginning and the end. That's where I see Nick. And in the middle, I can't even see him. He's so far ahead of me. But anyway, it's fun, Nick. We have a great time, don't we?
We do have a great time hitting the dirt roads of Northwest Arkansas.
I know, it is. We ride road, ride gravel, but we were talking the other day. We just love gravel now because the traffic and there's so much calmer out there with the farmers.
I think the traffic, the scenery, I think I was telling you last week I rode through the summer and I thought the dust would be a major issue, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you're here. Nick Gowen is the vice president of 360 Box JB Hunt's, one of the most phenomenal companies there is in the world. We're going to talk about this great company. We're also going to talk about Nick and his role and responsibilities on what you do at JB Hunt, and then some other things. And I think you're going to really enjoy this deep dive, if you will, into supply chain. You know, supply chain is critical. We learned at the pandemic what happens when that supply chain is interrupted. And we learned that. We're going to get into all this kind of stuff and how Nick and his team keeps the product moving throughout the world now, and not only on the roadways in the U.S., but abroad and on trains and everything else. And we'll get into some of that kind of stuff, Nick. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay, good. So, Nick, Vice President, 360 Box Operations.
Yes, sir.
Talk to us a little bit about that. And then what I want to do is come back and I just want to get into how you got to JB Hunt. And I know there's a story there. And then your journey over 30 years at JB Hunt. We want to talk about that. But let's give our viewers and listeners a opportunity. What is 360 Box?
Sure, Andy, thanks for asking. 360 Box, when you think about JB Hunt, that is our legacy truck line. That's what it started with.
Okay.
It was Mr. Hunt, and it was a trailer, and it was making deliveries to our customers. As he grew, he added trailers, and he added trailers to his network. That 360 Box is the trailer portion, and then we work to provide the power portion, whether that's through our own assets, through independent contractors, or outsourced brokerage power. But it's kind of a cool place to be. If you go back and look at what JB Hunt Truckload became over the last 20 years or so, it's kind of taking a backseat to intermodal. We've seen a ton of intermodal growth. I know you're familiar with that. And it's been a great product for our customers for low cost, great service, et cetera. So the truck line took a backseat to that. It's taken a little bit of a backseat to our dedicated, which is private fleet replacement or private fleet augmentation, and a little bit to our brokerage product. And what was awesome in probably 2017, 2018, we were all sitting around kind of talking about how do we kind of revitalize, how do we put some fire behind our traditional truck line, and the idea of 360 Box was born. So what 360 Box does is it looks at power that operates under our authority, but it also looks at additional capacity out there, and it gave us the opportunity to grow really fast. So think about it this way. If you are dealing with a traditional asset provider and you have 10 loads that are coming out of Kansas City tomorrow, and you have 9 trucks landing there, that's a problem. Only 9 of the loads are going to get covered. You're going to be at 90% on-time service at the best. So our idea was, let's not only use these trucks that run under our authority, let's open it up to basically outsource capacity. Now that outsourced capacity, they've got to meet our standards. They've got to be insured properly. They have to be a safe carrier. They have to be a respectful carrier. And when we opened that up, we were really able to accelerate with growth, and that kind of paired with the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, and wow, what a scary time!
Yeah,
starting up a new product, having the pandemic go on, we had sent all of our people to the house, and we're all working remotely. In the first couple of months, there really wasn't a lot of freight. We had a ton of carriers flock to us and really covet the freight that we had. But as we came out of that and we saw stimulus and we saw the demand and we saw the inventories get so far behind, we had a great platform to really grow 360 Box. And it allowed us to lean into that external outsource capacity, allowed us to grow rapidly. I think it was great because it let a lot of our customers see the value, that value of that model. So the long story short, 360 Box, it is the legacy truck line in JB Hunt, but it's so much more now that we lean into that external capacity. 360 comes from our app, 360, which is our carrier-facing and our customer-facing app. But it's been a hugely successful product.
Wow, that is a great overview. We have to go back and talk about your founders a bit because his story is so phenomenal. In Northwest Arkansas, where we're located, we have Walmart stores, we have JB Hunt, we have Tyson Foods, we have, and our University of Arkansas, which we're so proud of. But it's amazing what we have here in our little area, isn't it? And now, who is your customer on 360 Box?
Basically, our customers, anybody that honestly wants to move a product.
Okay. So you're that broad then?
So we're that broad.
Okay.
What I would say, that's limited to truckload capacity.
Okay.
We will do multi-stop. So
you will?
So if you're asking for LTL, I see where you're going here.
Yeah.
If you're asking for LTL inside 360 Box, I don't have an answer for that. Inside JB Hunt as a whole, we would have an answer for that. So my customer, what I'm really looking for is somebody that values the access to capacity, somebody that values a drop and hook product that can be on the front end of the load or the back end of the load or both. And typically when we're looking at customers that want a drop and hook product, they're trying to plan their staffing around unloading boxes and whatnot. So that's kind of the demographic of what we're looking for.
Okay, got it.
But full truckload, drop and hook.
Good. So when you get up in the morning and go to work, so what's your focus? What do you work on? What are your roles, your responsibilities? How do you keep the freight moving?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I think the number one thing is it really starts with my people. There's one, I've got to hold them accountable, but two, I've got to keep them happy. So always kind of looking at that and evaluating how are we doing? How's our morale? Things that I firmly believe in is if you take care of your people will take care of your carriers, they'll take care of your customers, and they'll take care of your stockholders. So the mindset's always there in the morning. Want to make sure that everybody gets started, everybody has a great day, that everybody understands what our expectations are, what our goals are. There's a lot that I'm looking at. One, I'm looking at our service to our customers the previous day, how we're setting up for service for our customers in the day that we're in. And then, there's a lot of times that we're looking farther down the road from just more of a strategic perspective, but just in the day-to-day operations, it's really that people, it's the service side of it, and it's understanding, honestly, the business part of the model. Are we able to take care of our customers? Are we able to make a proper return doing that? Are we able to take care of our carriers and our people adequately?
It's 360 box. The truck drivers that pull the trailers, are they independent or are they within JB? How does your drivers work?
So our mix of that is it can vary widely.
Okay.
So you go back to the time of the pandemic, capacity was in such great demand. We didn't have enough drivers, not at all, to do that. So that ability to outsource was great, and that really ran up that outsourced capacity to probably north of 50% of our capacity. Right now, we've got the vast majority of the capacity operates under our authority, and then you've got a smaller portion, and I've got two separate groups that used outsourced capacity. One is just traditional brokerage, and that's kind of more just that's kind of a catch-all. It can be very consistent, though, when I say catch-all, but it can catch that one-off load. And then I have a group that I'm also responsible for called PCS, Power Capacity Solutions. And that's where we work with outsourced carriers that don't operate under our authority, but we seek more long-term relationships. So we want to bring them in. We want to run them. We want to dispatch them. We want to make sure that they always have their next load.
Got it.
So it can ebb and flow. If capacity demands and we need to go to a 50-50 model, that we can do that. We typically don't live there unless it's a high demand and a high capacity situation.
It sounds like, Nick, you're very focused on the customer.
We are.
And that's wonderful, your service there. And I think that's the thing that our audience and viewers and listeners can take away, is the focus that 360 Box JB Hunt has on that customer. And you're watching that, evaluating that, communicating with that in order to get that freight from A to B, which is critical. As you know, now, inside of JB Hunt, and as I mentioned, we're going to talk about JB Hunt more broadly in a moment, but inside of JB Hunt, I know that you all do a lot of Walmart business or Target business and other retailer business, and I know that's could be somewhat outside of what you work on every day. But how does that go outside of 360 Box? Sort of open up, if you will, the window how large JB Hunt does and some other things that JB Hunt works. So you mentioned intermodal quickly earlier. Maybe talk some about that.
Yeah. So honestly, Andy, in my world, those customers, the retail customers, that's a big part of what I do every day.
Okay.
But you do see a variety of customers just kind of smattered throughout the organization. And those can be very specialty customers, or they can be retailers or the consumer product companies that are supplying those retailers. Intermodal, just a little bit about that. Intermodal, we are the largest provider of 53-foot containers and 53-foot capacity.
If I'm sitting at a train crossing, I'm seeing a lot of JB Hunt trucks on those trains.
There's a significant amount of capacity out there. That's for sure. It's been a incredible ride for us. It was an idea that Mr. Hunt had back in the late 80s, and worked with the BNSF on really a handshake agreement to get the product kicked off. I spent about 6 years in intermodal, and it was crazy to watch the amount of growth that we saw. When I went there, that organization had about 23,000 containers, and when I left, it had about 60,000 containers. So just it's been a rapid growth product for us. What's great about it, once you can work the transit, because you're going to have a little longer transit, especially in a longer length of hauls compared to a traditional truck. But once you can work that transit into your supply chain and understand the consistency and the reliability around that, it gives you the opportunity to really have that consistency in a product, that service that you need, and it gives you the opportunity to do that really at a lower price. So when you think about the value proposition around that, it is it's a phenomenal product.
Right.
It
Right.
really is.
Well, I don't think I ever told you about the time I got to go to Texas and Berkeley, northern Santa Fe, and got to look inside and be inside their office and watch some of the movement throughout the country. I won't ever forget how phenomenal it was to be inside that space.
Were you up in the control center?
Yes, I was in the control tower, and it was remarkable.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to talk more about that someday. Okay, Nick, 30 years at J.B. Hunt.
Yes, sir.
Now you went to school at University of Arkansas,
Yes, sir.
and you got your master's at John Brown University. Is that correct? Talk about your journey through the school and your journey to J.B. Hunt and some of the things, because you have a fascinating career prior to getting there. Well, I know about it, but as we visited, talk to us about that journey, because I think there's a lot of people that will be leaning in to have a passion for a career in this space. So talk about your journey.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. It's funny. I was talking with my wife the other night, and we were kind of laughing. We're talking about when do we want to retire, and one of the things I look back when I go back and look at my college career, I kind of feel like I took 4 years of retirement at some point during college. So it took me about 8 years to get through undergraduate. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I think law had kind of crossed my mind, and the closest degree the degree I was closest to was a degree in philosophy. It was a good segue into law just from the basis of arguments and logic, etc. So I was that guy that got the philosophy degree, and got out of college again after 8 years. Somewhere.
You're serious about 8 years, right?
That's serious.
Okay, that's okay. I'm laughing with you. I mean, this is good story.
Well, I'm laughing now, but I wasn't laughing at the time. And I honestly came out of college in the middle of a recession, and I wasn't that great of a student, and law school was proven to be a little harder to get into than I anticipated. So we were working on a plan B for that. Long story short, it was just, it was running up and down Highway 71 at the time, dropping off resumes at Tyson, J.B. Hunt, and Walmart. It seemed like for months, and finally I got a call back from J.B. Hunt, and I got hired by them, and got actually first job I ever took with them was called a freight handling coordinator, and I was like, well, that's got a good sound to it.
Yeah.
Like I like that. I can be a freight handling coordinator, and I go in and tell me about this job, and what they said is, well, you're going to come in at midnight. Said, okay. You're going to get off at 8:30 in the morning, and you are basically going to help our truck drivers find people to help them unload trucks. And they did not pay a lot of money. I mean, it did pay more than minimum wage, but I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I needed a job. I'd kind of been working around the restaurant industry and whatnot. It's like, it's just a foot in the door, and from there, I'll try to figure out what I can do to get into a management training program, decide if I'm going to go back to school or not. So started there, Andy, and it was an interesting job. Typically if a truck driver is hiring, they're called lumpers that unload trucks. They're probably not in a good mood because their day is interrupted. They've got to they've got to call me. I've got to go find a lumper. I have to negotiate a price with a lumper. I've got to make sure that lumper shows up. So it can be a pretty challenging process, and you get a lot of lively language with it. And as I got into that, I started thinking, well, I don't want to do this forever. So, what's my next move? And I found a gentleman who's still around. His name's Eric Arola. He runs our management training program. And I went to see Eric. I said, hey, Eric, can I get in this management training program? And he was like, well, do you have a transportation logistics degree? It's like, no, sir. He said, do you have 3 years of transportation experience? I said, no, sir. He said, okay. He said, did you have a 3-pointer above in college? And I laughed and said, no, sir, I did not. He said, well, when you get one of those, come back and see me. And
We both know Eric well. He's a great guy.
he's a good, oh yeah, he rides with us.
Yeah.
So if there's one thing I am, I'm persistent. So wait 2 or 3 weeks, and I send Eric another email. Or we had an internal system; we didn't have email then. But I would send him messages. I would try to catch him in the hall, and I would just kind of literally wear him out. And finally, one day, he sends me a message. He was like, "I'm going to give you one shot at this." He got an interview to go into dedicated contract services, and I went in. I sat down to interview with a gentleman at the time that was the president of dedicated contract services. Unbeknownst to me, he had an undergraduate degree in philosophy. And he sat down, he saw my resume. The first question he asked me was who my favorite philosopher was. And, I didn't have a favorite philosopher. I was just getting out of college. And I threw something out, and we had a 20-minute conversation on that. But Andy, honestly, the career really took off from there. I was able to get into dedicated operations. I did have a significant math background in college. And was able to kind of segue that into engineering roles. Spent multiple years in dedicated contract services in an engineering capacity, intermodal from a operations and a pricing capacity. Eventually to our brokerage group, had the opportunity, this was kind of a wild story too, but had the opportunity to really help us establish our field footprint, and what was a part of opening 32 field offices for that group, which was cool, and helping launch our 360 platform, and then now inside this 360 box.
Yes, sir. Thanks for sharing that journey. If you
winded.
Well, no, it's really good because not everyone immediately it works, and but if you were to look back and give some advice today, someone young that's listening to you today, and they are similar like you, okay, what would you tell them? What are a couple of things you say, these are things you have to do? What would that be?
Yeah, so there's a handful of things. The first thing that I do in any job is find out what's important. What are the goals? What are the metrics that we're going to be measured by?
Okay.
I think that's number one, because if you don't understand that, you're going to have a hard time satisfying the needs of your leadership.
Right.
So understand the metrics. The second thing that I've always done, and I still try to do now, is outside of work, try to take time weekly, bi-weekly to reflect on what it is you're working on, and are you putting the effort in the right places? Does it line up with your metrics, with your objectives? Does it line up with your values? If it doesn't, how do you navigate around that? And I think a lot of that, Andy, is trying to figure out how to work smarter. And if you take time to just kind of ponder, I've found that I've always been able to improve a process, improve a step, be able to accomplish something. That's probably the second thing that I do. And then I've got a saying that I firmly believe in, and this happens a lot in transportation. It probably happens a lot in every environment, but things go wrong. So I've got a saying that is bad news sells best early. And Andy, what I want to do with that is, if I'm going to have a problem, if I'm going to miss a delivery, if I'm going to miss a pickup, I want my customer to know as soon as they can know.
Right.
That way, they may be mad at me for missing that delivery, but it gives them the opportunity to recover it with someone else, the options to say, hey, Nick, I can reset that till tomorrow and we're going to be okay. But it gives everybody it gives us an opportunity to succeed. Maybe not the way we wanted to succeed, but if you're selling that bad news early, it is giving you the opportunity to succeed. Internally, it's the same way. If I've made a mistake, or if I've got a problem coming down the pike, I want my boss to know. I don't want him to be blindsided. by his leadership. So that's something I firmly believe in. And I would say those are really kind of the three things I would say that are important.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that you're persistent.
Yes.
And I think that's critical.
Yeah.
You got to keep at it.
Yeah.
And, that brings us to, your founders, Mr. Hunt, Mr. J.B. Hunt, and John L. Hunt, his partner. When I moved here a long time ago, Northwest Arkansas, actually the church I attended, Mr. Hunt was there. Mm-hmm. He was a member, and Mrs. Hunt, and I was, in my early 30s, and I remember the first time I met him, he was a towering guy with a tall guy with a cowboy hat on and boots, and I don't think I quite ever seen one like that. But what I began to admire and watch Mr. Hunt, from afar, and then unfortunately his passing, was devastating to this area. But it's amazing how everyone at J.B. Hunt, along with Mrs. Hunt, stepped up and continued the growth. And then later in my career, I got the opportunity to meet Mrs. Hunt and spend some time with her, and what she's done for this area has been amazing.
Oh yeah.
And for the world, but the country, but it's just so as we look at the leadership, the foundation, talk about the principles of J.B. Hunt, the culture. Talk about that.
Yeah. So when we really kind of talk about the principles, the things that let us get things done, we really talk about people. We talk about capacity, and we talk about technology. And the people side of it, Andy, I think, and you coming from really the people side in Walmart, the people side is something that I think is critically important. And I think J.B. Hunt, you look at me at 30 years, and honestly, if you look across that company, there are so many people that have been there 20, 25, 30, 35 years. It is a great place to stay.
Yeah.
My best friends are there. Mm-hmm. I don't know, and I've said this before, I don't even know if I should say it on a podcast, but I don't know that transportation is that intriguing. I mean, you're moving a load from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. The thing that's kept me there, it's been the people. Mm. And, I enjoy the people side of it. And we talk about that is really kind of one of our four tenets. Mm-hmm. When we talk about our values, I got a great story on one of these values here in a minute, but we talked about integrity, how we want to come across, how we want to behave. Mm-hmm. We talk about respect, and not that we want to be respected, but we want to be respectful of our carriers, and we want to be respectful of our customers. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about innovation. You look at the company, it started we started hauling chicken halts, right? And now 5 divisions and a ton of technology. It's definitely really had a lot of innovation. We talk about safety, and when you've got as many trucks on the road, when you've got as many loads on the road, it is inherently important for us to be a safe carrier. Mm-hmm. That's our wife, that's our kids, that's our friends, that's our family that's running down the highway next to an 80,000-pound truck. So no matter whether it's our truck or the side that I work on, the brokerage side, I want to make sure that carrier's being safe. And then the final thing that you'll hear us talk about a lot is excellence. Mm-hmm. We want to be excellent in what we do. Mm-hmm. We want to be excellent not only in the service that we give to our customer, we want to be excellent in our billing. We want to make sure that we bill right the first time. Mm-hmm. We want to be excellent in our communications. That bad news sells best early. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about us, those are a lot of the kind of values and principles that we talk about and that we hear about and that we've defined as kind of our values. But I think the most important thing for us is the people side, and I've seen that early on since I started at JB Hunt. The people. When I started, I think about like the Kirk Thompsons of the world, who is
Great guy.
former CEO, former chairman of the board. Kirk had been there, it seemed like forever when I started. But I noticed that a lot. The Mike Taylors, the Jeff Francos of the world, there were people that had been there a long time. And we did a great job taking care of our people. I talked about the pandemic early on, and I remember sending people home. And I remember one gentleman in particular, he had been with the company for 2 weeks. And, I was telling him, hey, we're going home. I know you don't know how to do this job. I know you're brand new. And I can't imagine the fear he had.
Right.
How am I going to do this remotely? Right. But we leaned into him, gave him the training we need. We did that for several people.
Yeah.
But people's always been at the forefront of what we do.
Nick, as I think about your company and the people that you have mentioned, and Walmart and JB Hunt have a lot of similarities. Founded by two individuals in our area, and then grew to be the size. But yet the focus, what you talked about, is critical as people. And that is what it's all about. And taking care of your people, making sure that they're ready and equipped. And it's really about servant leadership, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's being a servant.
It is
to your people, and that's what you're talking about. The culture inside your organization is about serving others. We see that. I see that visibly. You have a wonderful president, CEO now, and she does an excellent job of what I see her on LinkedIn or wherever. We're talking about those truck drivers, talking about and honoring those truck drivers. Same with all the employee associates inside the organization. Shelley continues to drive that message down inside the organization. It's great when you have a company that loves their people and cares and takes care of the people, and that's what JB Hunt is.
It is, Andy, and I can't say enough about that. Like the culture is great. It is honestly, it's a fun place to work at, and I love to have fun. I love to make money, and it's just a great place to do.
Nick. Okay, thank you for sharing about 360 Box. Thank you for sharing about some of your roles and responsibilities and your customers. And then, of course, I always enjoy the culture discussion we just had around your company. For our viewers and listeners, if you were going to summarize a few things, how would you summarize what we've talked about today? How would you prioritize and summarize around what you do, what your company is all about?
Well, I hope I understand the question. So really just a summary of the conversation?
Yeah. Here's another way. If you were to summarize our conversation, here are three things that are most important that I do every day or our company does every day.
Yeah. I'll go back to things that I think are important.
Okay, sure.
One, I think it's our people. We have to do an excellent job of taking care of them.
Right.
That's giving them, it's taking care of them during the pandemic and not laying people off. It's giving them the opportunity to develop, to grow, to give the resources they need to move up in the organization. And then it's making sure their morale is intact. It's making sure they feel good and they feel recognized about what they do. I think our people's a big part of that. The second thing is I would say it's about our customers.
Right.
I want to make sure that they have a great experience. I want them to feel like they get for what they pay for. Right. That they get they get a value out of that, and that it's market competitive, and that they understand if it costs more. I want them to really understand the value of the service, the value of the experience. If they're looking for something that costs less, I want that to be able to serve up for them as well, just whatever it is they're looking for. And then the third thing I would say is our carriers. Whether it's a driver for us or it's outsourced carrier, I want them to have a great experience as well. I want them to be a place where they're like, my next load needs to come from JB Hunt. So how do we do that? We treat them with dignity, we treat them with respect, and we make sure that they're compensated fairly for the work they do.
I think I know you summarized that perfectly during our conversation. That's exactly how you talked about everything. And so thank you for that. I think the takeaway for our viewers here is that if you're working in a company, or you want to build a company someday, or you want to be part of a company, what Nick has done today, he's really laid out, this is what you look for. You look for a company that takes care of people, people first, and you look for a company that knows their customers and takes care of their customers, and their carriers are a big part of that. The third thing he taught. So as you look into companies today, listen to the wisdom that Nick has given us today around what's important to him, but that's how he operates. And you talked about, here's your role and responsibility. And quite frankly, you said the same thing. And that is how you lead. So Nick, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you this morning. I thank you. It's been so much to me that you're here. I really appreciate our friendship, and I want you to know you just done a great job, and you really taught us a lot and reminded us a lot of what's important. So thank you for that.
Eddie, thank you so much for having me here. I always enjoy talking with you.
Same here. And now, a couple of things before we get out of here. First of all, thank you so much, our viewers and listeners. It means so much to us. And again, I mentioned thank you for that you're taking us beyond all of our expectations. So keep that up, because our expectations keep rising every day too. So keep that up. Nick, what we didn't talk about, maybe we get you to come back, because there's a lot. I know you're on the board of the Ozark Foundation, and we both love cycling, but it's way beyond that. But I want to maybe come back someday and give us an update on what's going on at JB Hunt, 360 Box, and then maybe we can get into some community things that I think is so important for all of our leaders to yes, the work is that but let's what happens outside of that. So maybe we can get into that.
Love to do that.
Would you do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us today. I'm Andy Wilson. Again, Nick Gowen, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you on the road and on the gravel. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thank you again. Take care. Goodbye.